Sorry, there's a load of crashes and bangs coming from downstairs because my dad's currently watching Inception on full boom. This is my companion part to the worst of the year. This is now the my favourite films of 2010. There's only going to be 5 movies. That there are some that haven't been able to make the list. A number of which are the likes of Bad Lieutenant, very very good film, but not worthy of the top 5. Kick Ass, I had to really think about whether to include that one or not in my top 5. It is definitely in my top 10, but it's not in my top 5. Another one as well is Shutter Island, actually. Shutter Island is not in my top 5, but these are my top 5 movies of the year. At number 5 stars Ryan Reynolds and is directed by Rodrigo Cortez. I went with a friend of mine, and we just weren't prepared for how good a movie that could be set in a coffin really could be. It just shows how much of a good actor Ryan Reynolds has become. That he's been able to, being the only physical presence on the screen, he's able to, hold the movie all by himself. And there are other characters in the film. He speaks to his wife. He speaks to his boss. He speaks to the person that's dealing with his kidnapping case. He speaks with his kidnappers. But he is the only physical presence on screen. Nothing could prepare me really for what happens during the course of the movie. I mean, how do you film someone being in a coffin for an hour and a half? And I was just very, very impressed. I mean, I went and saw it more out of curiosity than anything else, but the film itself I was very, very, very impressed with. There are enough legitimately surprising plot twists that happen during the course of the film to keep you engaged. It's the sort of film you could imagine Alfred Hitchcock making if he was still alive. I mean, it does reek just entirely of Alfred Hitchcock. Buried appeals or it doesn't. I mean, my older brother went and saw it, and he suffers from claustrophobia, and he liked the film, but he found it very uncomfortable to watch. It's one of these major surprises. It hasn't made a huge amount of money. It does boast a big star, but it's just nice to see that a big star like Ryan Reynolds would do something of this kind of thing. So I appreciate Buried very, very, very much. It's as I said in my original review, it's one of those films that reaffirms your faith in cinema that things like this can still be done. So it's all said in one place, and it is a bit of an exercise in that respect. But it's an exercise that works. That's the main thing. It does work very, very well. So yeah, Buried, my number 5 movie of the year. Number 4. I really like The Social Network. I like it very, very much. A friend of mine, David, who was a massive David Fincher fan. I wouldn't be surprised if it's his number 1 film of the year because he sung it with an extraordinary amount of praise. I personally thought it was good but not great. I didn't think it was the greatest movie ever made. I mean, in fact, on my blog I didn't give it a perfect score. I gave it a score of 4 out of 5. But that's not to detract from the fact that it is, in places it's very, very good. And there was something just lacking ever so slightly. There's not a huge amount of ambiguity there. There's not a huge amount in terms of plot twists and stuff. I mean, it is based on fact, dramatized fact, but enough fact to make the fact that it's based on that label of it being based on a true story to be entirely justified. The film itself is held together very well by 3 majorly key performances, that of being Justin Timberlake as Sean Parker, Andrew Garfield as Eduardo Saverin, and Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg, especially Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg. That is the best performance of the year, hands down. I mean, he is extraordinarily good. And it is held together as well, not just by these great performances, but this very quippy dialogue, this bang, 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 rat-a-tat dialogue. That's got this, the quirks of Tarantino, but it's also very smart, which is what I really liked about it. A movie about a bunch of people that are talking about algorithms and what it's like to be, in social hierarchy. I think it's very much like the Wall Street of the Facebook generation. Greed is good up to a certain extent, and then sometimes it fucks your friends over, basically. It was a very interesting move for David Fincher. I was very happy that he'd done something like this. It's nice to know that this is a film that everyone seems to have tapped into. It's quick, it's breezy, it's very likable. The whole film is very likable, despite being populated by some very unlikable people. The Social Network gets my vote, and it is it's definitely not a bad film. It's in my top 5 of the year. Number 3. This one really fought it out with The Social Network in terms of which should be first, but ultimately I enjoyed Scott Pilgrim more than I did The Social Network. This is a film that I struggled to get into to begin with, and then literally by about boyfriend, ex boyfriend number two, who's played in a very funny way by Chris Evans, who's going on to play Captain America in the movie next year, is just really, really, really funny. And then when I finally just sat down and went, you know what, I'm going to go with this, the film itself is successful on pretty much every front. Not only is it quirky and very funny, it's got this emotional weight to it as well, and you can really see that Edgar Wright has kind of come from being this this parody man who worked on space. This one has just taken something to an all new level. He's made like his first big Hollywood movie, but it's still got all the quips from what made Edgar Wright, what makes an Edgar Wright piece an Edgar Wright piece. It's within the confines of a Hollywood movie, if you see what I mean. And he does make it his own. So he's got the emotional resonance there. He's got the conflict that it needs to, the main conflict that needs to happen with these sorts of films. But at the same time, it's got little quippy things that, like whenever someone comments about Scott's hair, it immediately cuts to Scott, and he's suddenly got a hat on. And it did take me about 20 minutes to get into the thing. But after those 20 minutes, I was just like, this is getting, as Chris Evans says in the film, it was actually hilarious. That's all I can really say about Scott Pilgrim. It's just a really fun summer film, and it's done in a way that's quirky, very accessible, and I just really enjoyed the thing. I can't really say much more than that. Number two, I kept asking myself whether it was bad that I enjoyed Toy Story 3 a bit more than Toy Story 2. And that's not to take away from Toy Story 2, because I think Toy Story 2 is terrific. But this was a better film than Toy Story 2, and I was absolutely astonished about that. Because I mean, it's been 11 years since Toy Story 2, and somehow Toy Story 3 manages to make itself seem necessary within the confines of two of the greatest animated movies of all time. So not only does it make itself have purpose, but the story behind it all, the actual story, the actual narrative of the film, is actually the perfect send-off and the perfect, concluding part to a series that has been with us since 1995. I was only 10 years old when the original Toy Story came out. I'm now 25, and I still found myself sitting there, laughing where I needed to laugh, getting really emotional in the emotional bits, and then when it comes to the end, where it's this bittersweet ending, where it's sad but it's poignant and it's necessary. And everyone's moved on. Andy's moved on. The toys have moved on. And you can't help but sit there and kind of sit there and clap and go bravo, but kind of wipe your eyes at the same time. It also helps that the film in places is just unbelievably funny. Highlights Mr. Potato Head with a tortilla as a body. Ken of Barbie and Ken fame, just complaining about having issues about being branded a girl's toy when he's the most metrosexual man you'll ever meet. Spanish Buzz, what can I say about Spanish Buzz? I mean, that's really funny. But in taking this established idea in Toy Story 2 of abandonment and spanning that over the course of a whole film, I think really helped. And the fact that the film is set some 10, 11 years after the second film also helps as well. And it just manages to bring it to a new audience that quite possibly weren't even born by the time the first film came out. They're blatantly just making it so that it's the last film in the entire in a trilogy. They've only done this film because they felt the story needed to be said, and it did need to be said, and it's done. And they've done it justice. And they've possibly made one of the finest animated movies ever made. It's one of the best sequels ever made. And in fact, the Toy Story trilogy as a whole is probably there's a British critic called Mark Kermode, who I'm very much a fan of, and he has actually gone on record to say that the Toy Story trilogy is in fact the greatest movie trilogy of all time, because every single one of the movies is a masterpiece, and they are consistent. I mean, there is a tonal consistency through the whole trilogy. They are all utterly brilliant. I came out of the film and I felt so happy and upbeat about the whole thing, and I was just like, that's the perfect way to end the entire saga. But it's not good enough to be my number one movie of the year. Let's round that up. At number 5, we've got Buried. At number 4, we have The Social Network. At number 3, we have Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. At number 2, we have Toy Story 3. At number 1, we have did you really expect it to be anything else? I saw Inception 3 times at the cinema. I've now seen it twice on DVD, and it doesn't lose its punch at all. It is at once the most technically proficient and the most emotionally gratifying film I've seen in years. Christopher Nolan moves his players around a ball, like, moves his players like he does, pieces on a chessboard. And everything he has learnt from making twisty, mind-bending movies from Memento to making his big, blockbusting Batman movies has come to fruition here. It panders to all of his sensibilities. He's just formulated an absolute masterpiece here. The fact that, at the end of it, you realise that the majority of the runtime has taken place in, 3 or 4 separate states of someone's subconscious. It's just utterly breathtaking. It's 2.5 hours long. It doesn't feel like that. I could have quite happily sat down and watched it all day. This world that's been created and the little logistics. When I actually went and saw it for a second time, it was more gratifying because you just realise how impeccable, not just the actual narration is, not just how well constructed the film is, but the infallibility of the ideas behind this is nothing, like literally nothing I have ever seen before. I could not, in this day and age, I was still astonished that something like this could be, the logistics of something like this could be, conceived. It was just one of the most satisfying things to have a director sit there and say, listen, you are going to have to work for this. You're going to have to work for your payoff. And you really have to work. The more you pick up, the more you realise just how just well constructed everything is. I mean, even when they mention little things like totems, I mean, it's just a brilliantly simple idea to make sure that you're still, awake and whether you're dreaming or not. It's something that happens in one dream state will directly affect what's something that happens within the other dream state, but you're so far down the next dream state that it doesn't go to the next dream state. But everything else is also compounded. So if you've got 2 minutes to do something in that dream state, you've got 40 minutes to do it in the next dream state, and you've got many hours to do it in the dream state after that. In fact, it came to a conclusion when I was watching it with my father literally yesterday, that if they'd been stuck in limbo, they would have been, for the duration of the flight, it would have felt like 200 years, stuff like that. I mean, it is very difficult to put into words to how I feel about Inception. I mean, Jurassic Park was the movie that got me into movies, but to try and keep getting that sense of wonderment that I was experiencing as an 8-year-old boy while sitting there watching Jurassic Park, and dinosaurs have come to life. I'd never seen anything like it before, and it's the reason why I love cinema, is to keep getting that kind of experience, that wonderment, that escapism. And very rarely do you find films that do that. My favourite film of all time is Magnolia, because that's what happened, but it was a more emotional and adult level. Consider, Inception as being a movie that kind of meshed the wonderment of Jurassic Park plus with the emotional, adult hefty weight of Magnolia, kind of combined it into this massive summer blockbuster. And that's the best way I can describe my satisfaction with Inception. It is one of the best films ever made. If I ever get the chance, even at just say like a premiere, to meet Christopher Nolan, I just want to give the guy a hug. I probably won't because I might get arrested. He is the single most exciting director working today. Inception is the movie of seeing an auteur fully realised before your eyes. When the film finished, I just literally wanted to stand up and go, just that satisfying. So for that reason, Inception is my top film of 2010. But anyway, I hope you all had a good Christmas, and I hope you all have a good New Year, and I'll speak to you soon. Adios. Ciao.